sure you all have time to talk to him and hear him speak, so I'm going to shut up now. Governor Huckabee.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Heather. And first of all, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Oh, you guys are good. It's like you've been to church before when the pastor says good morning and everybody responds back. We could do a responsive reading and get something out of you guys. Well, thank you very much for showing up on a very cold day. Although to you, I'm sure it's not all that cold, but to some of us, it's cold. You know, every time when I'm here in this part of the year, and we get off the airplane, I look around and I'm thinking, how far north did we go? But we're delighted to be here. You know, we're going to spend virtually all of January in Iowa. 150 events in this month between now and the night of the caucus. Please clap hard because all of you who clapped have to attend all 150 events with me. I would not wish that upon anybody. That's going to be a grueling schedule. But we're doing it because, look, we understand that Iowa is ground zero, not just for our campaign. It is ground zero for the entire presidential election. The template for all of what's going to happen starts right here. You're the first people in America to actually vote. I don't know, is anybody a little tired of watching the pundits on television pontificate with such authority?
Yes.
And they tell us all what's going to happen and what you're going to do. They know exactly what the people of Iowa are going to do. I find that interesting because not one person in America has voted yet. Not one. And they've already got it figured out. And I wonder, do any of them read? Because if they did, and they could go back 4 years or 8 years, they would find that whatever was happening at this stage prior to the caucus proved not to be the final score. And that's why when people say to me, well, do you think you have a chance? Folks, if I didn't think I had a chance, do you think I'd spend January doing 150 events in snow? I may not be the smartest guy that ever ran for president, but for God's sake, give me credit for a little more brains than that. And by the way, this Thursday will mark when we will hit all 99 counties. And when I say hit all 99 counties, that's since I announced my candidacy in the middle of May. So that's a pretty concentrated time. And when I say we've been to all 99 counties, I'm not talking about driving through, waving out the car window, or stopping at a pizza ranch and getting a slice. I'm talking about doing events, just like this one, in all 99 counties as of Thursday. I think in Iowa you call that the full grass lake, in honor of the senator, who every year goes to all 99 counties, which, by the way, I think is one of the reasons that he has had a remarkable Senate career is because he has never forgotten why he was elected. He has never forgotten who elected him and who he's supposed to serve. Excuse me. I'm sure none of you have this issue this time of year. I'm taking enormous amounts of vitamin C, vitamin D, B, E, F, and G. And it doesn't seem to work a whole lot. But I want to say how grateful we are for your being here. Look, it's Saturday morning, it's the beginning of a new year. But we know over the next 30 days, the people of Iowa will actually start deciding. Let me give a little example of what we found. We polled over 5,000 people in Iowa the week before Christmas. 5,000. Most of the national polls that you hear about are 200 or 300 sample. 5,000 people in Iowa. Here's what they told us. 75% of them have not made up their mind yet. 58% of them are not even leaning one way or the other. This is not a big surprise to me, having been through this process. I often say it this way. People of Iowa, they love to date, but they don't put a ring on it until just before the wedding. Which means most people of Iowa will come and hear the candidates, listen carefully, but they don't make up their mind finally until just before the caucuses. Now today I'm in Winterset, back in Madison County, right back here at the Northside Cafe, which we love. It's a great, great place. And one of the reasons that we're here is to just say, folks, on caucus night, we need you to come out and caucus for us. Weather will probably be worse than this. Probably at least as cold, maybe colder. Beautiful sunshiny day today, but it may be snowing or sleeting when we get down to February 1st. If it is, please don't let that keep you from coming out to caucus. That is, if you're going to caucus for me. Now, if you have some irrational thought about supporting another candidate, and I cannot imagine why you would do that, but if you should think that way, let me just remind you, it's going to be even colder than it is today. Sleet, snow, and ice everywhere. It could be treacherous to get your vehicle out. Folks, if you're going to vote for someone else, take my advice. Stay home on caucus night and watch it on television. Do not risk your safety and that of your family to get out in this inclement weather. Well, folks, I think most of us understand that there are challenges this nation has faced, the likes of which I'm not sure we've ever faced before. We say that every 4 years. We really do. I mean, I can't think of any election as I've ever been a part of in my adult lifetime that for the most part we didn't say, this is the most important election in our lifetime. And we mean that. And many times it is in fact true. But after 7 years of President Obama and the radical leftist policies that he and Hillary Clinton, when she was running our foreign policy, have imposed upon us and the world, it has never been more true than to say this is the most important election in our lifetime. We have challenges in national security like we've never had before. 60% of the American people are truly worried personally about being the victim of terrorism. Now, statistically, let's be honest. You're not likely to personally be a victim of terror, just in terms of statistics. But I mean, statistically, you're not likely to die in an airplane crash, but many of you, every time you get on an airplane, you're a little nervous about it. It's just the way we're wired. But the fact that 60% of Americans are concerned about it, which is double what it was a year ago, tells us that the effect of terrorism from the radical jihadists is working. Because their real goal, other than to kill us all, and they're very patient about knowing it'll take a while, is to scare the rest of us that they aren't killing. And to make us change the way we live. And they're doing that. And it's time that we change the way they live. It's time that we make sure they don't live anymore. And we take them out of our misery and take that 60% fear factor down to 0. It's also time that we rebuild our military. We've decimated it under this president. 25% cuts in the military. We have the smallest number of ships that we have had in our Navy since before World War I. We are the least prepared to fight a war since before World War II. That's not the way to scare the world and make them not want to attack us. Rebuilding our military has to be on the table and high priority. But if we get national security issues resolved, we've got some real economic problems. I know the president likes to tout and say that the economy is doing very well, but I don't guess he stood in line with the folks at the layaway counter at Walmart just before Christmas. Because had he done so, he would have listened to people tell how hard they had worked this year and how little they had to show for it because their hard work barely keeps them where they were a year ago. And if it weren't for lower fuel prices, many of Americans would have already just pretty much bottomed out. It's the only thing that's kept a lot of families from just going under. The average American family has $1,000 or less in savings total. To put that in perspective, that means that the average American family is a root canal away from being completely devastated. And I don't think the president understands folks that are struggling like that. And I know he may say the economy is doing well, and it is if you live on Wall Street. It is if you are among the extremely fortunate, well-heeled, who can afford to go and spend a $30,000 amount of money to have a handshake with the president, have your picture made at a fine event for the swells. But it is not doing that well for lots of folks who are just working people who have not been able to keep up with the challenges. And then I think it's also true to say that our country's got to once again find its soul. I've often said that there are three big things we got to deal with: national security, the economy, and the character and virtue of our nation. I know that may not sound politically correct to talk about things like virtues and honor and integrity. But folks, corruption is killing our government. I fought corruption in the world of the Clinton political machine in Arkansas. Believe you me, you want to talk about what it's like to face corruption? I faced some. I know this will be hard for you to believe, but 20 years of the Clintons appointing everybody and employing everybody in state government, the government that I inherited, was a challenge. And the challenge was, how do you go through that kind of situation when I was the only Republican elected in the state capitol? They were so happy to see me, they nailed my door shut at the state capitol to the office of lieutenant governor when I was first elected. That was a real joy. I go get sworn in, I go down to open the door, won't open. Nails are in the door. They stayed there for 59 days. After we finally got the door open, all the furniture had been taken out, the budget zeroed out, and there was a contemptuous attitude toward this interloper Republican, first in 25 years, only the fourth in 150 years to be elected. So it wasn't like I got applause walking into the Capitol every day. But I took on the corruption, and we saw 17 different public officials indicted, tried, convicted, removed from office. And folks, most of you know that one of the things we've got to do in Washington is root out the corruption. And the people who are there haven't done much to challenge it. In most ways, they've become part of it. It's time to fight it. It's time to burn it down, root it out, and build a government you can trust. And a government that understands that it has to function like you do. It can't spend money it doesn't have, and it can't borrow money that it can't afford to pay back. That ought to be pretty common sense stuff to everybody. And I hope it will be to you as well. I want to spend most of my time this morning answering questions that you may have and convincing you that on February 1st you need to come out and caucus for me, or convincing you that the caucuses have been moved to March, whichever one helps me the most. That's really why I'm here today. And so here in John Wayne's hometown, let me ask if anybody would like to pose the first question. We have virtual judicial tyranny, something Thomas Jefferson warned us about and pleaded with us not to let happen. To take a court decision and assume that it is the final word. Because what Jefferson said was that if we allow a court decision to rest as a final authority and word, then we now have the doctrine of judicial supremacy, which is not constitutional, and we are entering into a phase of our country where we have judicial tyranny. And Jefferson said we turned the Constitution into a thing of wax. Let me put you blunt. For at least the last 70 years, we have sort of almost acquiesced to an overreaching judicial branch. It is the duty and responsibility of the other two branches to hold in check the power of the judiciary, and when they are out of line and issue rulings that are not based on the wording of the Constitution, it's the duty and authority of both the Congress and the executive branch to say, we appreciate your review, we appreciate your thoughts, but we are not going to accept it, and we're not going to enforce it. If that sounds, wow, that's bold, actually, it's not at all. That's the constitutional process of checks and balances. Most of us learned this in ninth grade civics. We have three branches of government, not one, three. They are all equal. They're equal and they're separate. And they serve as checks and balances to each other. The Congress has the power of the purse, the executive branch has the power of the sword, and the judicial branch actually only has the power of its own opinion. And if the other two branches do not agree and choose to enforce it, it really has no power at all. Jefferson understood this, Madison did, Jackson did, Adams did, Lincoln did. Many people in our modern world do not. Too steeped in Ivy League law school, not steeped enough in the actual content of the Constitution. And we need to get back to that understanding where there are limitations of each of the branches, their responsibilities. And by the way, one of the things that I think many of us are upset about in our own Republican Party is that our own party has failed to do its constitutional duty to hold the president in check with overreaching and overpowering decisions. And if the president has his way, he's going to issue by executive order new gun control measures. And I would like to believe that our Congress would show up with a spine next week, because they certainly didn't before Christmas when they acquiesced to the spending bill, which was an absolute slap in the face to every Republican who went out and voted to give people, Republicans in the majority of the House and Senate, and they turned around and gave Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid everything they wanted on their Christmas list while they were dancing in the streets. Funded Planned Parenthood, Syrian refugee relocation, Obamacare, illegal immigration. I mean, they funded the Iranian deal. You need to ask some of the senators running for president, why did they vote to give President Obama more power with Iran, especially if they pretend to be against the Iranian deal? And if they say, well, we didn't vote for the budget, they voted for the Corker bill, which made it easier for President Obama to institute a bill that gave the Iranians $150 billion to build a bomb, in addition to the fact that it allowed them to get into a deal that they have yet to sign. Did you know that? How many of you knew that they haven't even signed it yet? They haven't. We did. They didn't. They're laughing up their sleeve at us.